Welcome to episode 200 of the Grip Strip podcast, the holiday cheer edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar, go-karting extraordinaire. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing great, Phil. Thank you for all those accolades that I've earned over the years, but we've made it to episode number 200, and gotta say, 200 is a nice round number, perfect number for racing podcasts. 200 is always the benchmark for speed and everything, and of course, it also took 200 points for one of us to win in our fantasy football matchup last night, and fitting that this comes after that, which I've taken you down in the first round of the Fall Brawl playoffs, so ready to get into it.
Yeah, I'll let that go. But it's true. Yet again in my league, I've taken an L. But this time, Josh, who has been very close to winning this league in his participation, this is year 3 for you, right? So
yeah.
So been close both years. So now you're gonna get an opportunity in semifinals, get a little bit extra cash possibly, depending on where you're at. I mean, if you get to the final, it's definite money, and if you win the consolation, that's money. But then I have to go through that still. I have to go through all the recaps and stuff with that and see who's where in terms of the money payouts. But we'll talk about that in the football segment. We'll get into how our regular teams went and did this weekend, and other fantasy teams for me. I had a bye in multiple leagues this week. One because I'm in the missed the playoff side, and then one as the number 1 seed. So we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about all the news that's come out here in the last week in the world of motorsports. A lot of stuff going on in NASCAR, so we'll get into that. And we'll also recap the best moments from this year for GSP. Definitely highlights and I guess opportunities and dream opportunities that took place. So we'll review with that, and then we'll go and do a little hot take, kind of too early championship prediction for the 3 major motorsports that we cover here on the show. One of them we know what that championship is going to be, sadly, but we have NASCAR's Big 3 Series and IndyCar, so that will be interesting. Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing and gaming in the sim segment, and then we'll call it a day, and we'll take a holiday break, at least during Christmas break. I know, Josh, you're going and taking extra time on New Year's, so trying to flesh out somebody to go and do a show just based on football, but we'll see what happens with that. But that'll be in a couple weeks' time. We'll definitely take off for Christmas and try to come back to start season number 5 of the GSP with episode 201. So let's go and talk about NASCAR first. Going into the Cup. I mean, on the Cup Series side, there was multiple announcements here. Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be running Cup and Xfinity. WeatherTech is going to sponsor Shane Van Gisbergen while he drives for Colleague Racing in the Xfinity Series, and he's going to run a partial Cup schedule for Trackhouse. So that was one big piece of news. It's also been announced that he will be in the Daytona ARCA race to get qualified to drive in the Xfinity Series race at Daytona. We had also other announcements here. Carson Hocevar's main sponsor next year on the number 77 car will be Ziegler Auto Group. That's a sponsor that Josh Balicki ran a lot last year or this year. And another, I don't know if we talked about Pizza Face getting Hunt Brothers Pizza along with the champion Ryan Blaney, but that also came up. And and Advent Health going to Legacy Motor Club. Trackhouse going to MotoGP or taking over the whatever the team that was the RNF Racing Aprilia team. Change spotters. We talked about that before. So we'll also, I think there was some spotter announcements too, but a lot of crew chief and then some crew chief announcements, mainly on the Xfinity side, but also in the Cup side. Jason Burdett is going to be the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson for his limited schedule next year. It was Todd Gordon who was the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson this year for the few races that he did. Burdett is another person who came from the Hendrick stable, and then spent many years at Hendrick, and he most recently, of course, was at JRM, crew chiefing Justin Allgaier. So now he moves up to Cup. Worked under Ray Evernham and Chad Knaus and Robbie Loomis, so definitely very well qualified. And now he moves over to Legacy to work with Jimmy. The announcement, one of the worst kept secrets in all of NASCAR, was Sheldon Creed and Chandler Smith becoming full-time drivers in the Xfinity side for Joe Gibbs Racing. Sheldon Creed will drive the number 18 and Chandler Smith driving the number 81. The number 20 car will be, they'll run 4 full-time cars in 2024. The number 20 will be ran a majority of the races by Eric Almirola, and then John Hunter Nemechek's going to run 10 races. The 19 will be of 4 drivers: Ryan Truex, William Sawalich, Joe Graff Jr., and Taylor Gray. So that'll be the one that gets wrecked a lot, at least with the latter 3. Ryan Truex and his opportunities will probably be pretty competitive. So the crew, and also for they list all these people's names. So Jeff Mendering continues with Jeff Mendering will be teaming up with Chandler Smith. He used to be with Buckshot Jones for a long time. And then he was working with Sammy Smith last year. Sam McCauley will be the crew chief for Sheldon Creed. Seth Chavka will be the 19 crew chief. And Tyler Allen will work with the 20 car. The last two, or the other 3 guys are all engineers, have been engineers at JGR for period of years, so they will go and advance up to Xfinity. JGR also will run ARCA with William Sawalich on the East, ARCA East. And then the other races that he's not eligible for based on being 17 will be raced by Tanner Gray. So the Gray brothers now are getting a promotion of sorts, getting into the JGR pipeline, being Toyota development drivers. So a lot going on there. And see what else is going on here. Yeah, the WeatherTech announcement was an interesting one and pretty cool to see. And then that's for the bonus David McNeil, primary sponsor. Also, Zane Smith is actually going to have WeatherTech on his number 71 car to start for the Daytona 500. So that's interesting. 17 race sponsorship in the Xfinity Series through 4 Cup races for SVG, and then Zane Smith also will have support. Of course, we know that WeatherTech, the McNeils, Cooper McNeil, the son, recently retired from driving earlier this year. And now they're making a connection with Justin Marks, since Justin Marks, former sports car racer, of course, and trying to do his thing, getting yet another sponsor into the fold. And that tells you all you need to know. There's teams that can't get any sponsorship, but Trackhouse doesn't have that problem. I'm going to move off of that there. Noah Gagson, that's another poorly kept secret. Noah Gagson's going to return to the Cup Series in 2024, and he'll be taking over the 10 car that was vacated by Eric Almirola. No sponsorship has been announced. Drew Blickensderfer will be the crew chief. So right now, in terms of Stewart-Haas Racing, you have Chase Briscoe with Mahindra and HighPoint.com, HighPoint Solutions, Magical Vacation Planner, and then some of the other leftover sponsors from the days of Tony and Boyer. And then after that, you have the 41 with Ryan Preece, who has United Rentals or whatever, and then that'll be the Haas Automation, and then there will be probably some other sponsors there I'm probably forgetting. And the 4 and the 10, we don't know what their sponsorship package is going to be in 2024, and we're in the middle of December. So that's kind of dire, I would say. But we will see what comes for Josh Berry running the 4 car, and then Gagson in the 10. And then there's other announcements or sponsors. Another big news piece, Ryan Blaney finally popped the question to his smoking hot girlfriend, Gianna Tullio, and she said yes. So YRB is going to get married. He continues to win. He's been winning in that end of the deal for a while. They've been together for 3 years, so being with a Hooters swimsuit model isn't the worst thing in the world, and now he gets to go and make good-looking babies with her. So credit to YRB on that. In terms of the Xfinity Series, a couple of things that have came up today, actually. We have JRM will have 2 new crew chiefs. Adam Wall, who will be taking over the 8 car for Sammy Smith. That's the team that Josh Berry was driving for. Philip Bell will be crew chiefing for Buckshot Jones. And the 9, both are Hendrick Motorsports engineers moving up to crew chiefs. Marty Lindley stays with Sam Mayer, and Jim Pullman stays with Justin Allgaier. So those are the crew chiefs for there. Blaine Perkins, who's a Daddy's Money ride buyer, is driving for Our Motorsports and SS Greenlight, and he will race for RSS Racing. So essentially, he's going to take over the ride that Joe Graff Jr. had. Ryan Sieg will be in the 39. Kyle Sieg and Blaine Perkins will be the 2 other full-time drivers. What numbers they're going to be using to be determined. But Blaine Perkins will bring the Daddy's Money over to RSS Racing and the Ford camp. The last 2 pieces of news, or 3 pieces, or 2. Yeah, I think we talked about Timmy Hill, but Grant Enfinger will continue in the Truck Series next year, driving for Cody Robaugh's team, the CR7 Motorsports Chevrolet, and they will bringing his bringing his sponsorship package over there. They'll also have affiliation McAnally Hilgeman, so there'll be essentially a third McAnally Hilgeman truck. And in addition to Pizzola top notch, Michael Shelton will become the GM. Jeff Stankiewicz is moving back to the Truck Series after spending the last few years with Sheldon Creed. He'll be the crew chief. And so that looks like a pretty competitive package. Big upgrade for Cody Robaugh's situation. And then the other news item, big news item, is Lane Riggs will be taking over the 38 Front Row Motorsports Ford truck, the ride vacated by Zane Smith. That is a big piece of news, and it actually gives hope to Ford because they let Zane Smith go. Lane Riggs, a second-generation driver, his dad, Scott, drove in the Cup Series and Xfinity Series for many years. He was a driver for Evernham when Rodney Childers started his first crew chiefing job back in 2006 in the Cup Series. Riggs drove the Nesquik car after Jeff Green. He wrecked David Green at Dover or one in that year in 2003 and was part of what cost him the championship. Riggs also drove the ASC Team ASC truck in the Truck Series with Jim Smith Ultra Motorsports, and he won races there. So Lane Riggs committed full time to the Truck Series. One of the better young talents that we have in the sport, a weekly racing champion, the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series champion in the last couple of years in late models. And so now he's going to run trucks. Hopefully, for the sake of Ford, they lock him up long term. But we'll see about that. So a lot over there. I went over a lot of that stuff from J-Ski. So, Josh, what stands out to you amongst all the news in all 3 series?
I mean, I think to me the biggest one is SVG getting a Xfinity ride, and on top of that, he's going Cup racing also. I mean, this is part of his transition into stock car racing. Last year ran 2 races and 1 at Chicago, where he scored the victory in the first ever street race in the Cup Series. So, this is a big move for him. Of course, it is kind of funny that in order for him to race in the Xfinity series. He needs to get an ARCA start there, and then on top of that, I think he's already raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona. So a little ridiculous there, some of those requirements, but I guess to get more super speedway experience there. But it's pretty significant because he's going to be in a decent ride, and he's also going to be teammates with AJ Allmendinger. So you have two really good road course drivers there that could be a threat. So for SVG, it's possible that he gets into the playoffs just because in the Xfinity series, just because he's a road course driver, and can easily see him winning at Chicago again, either in Xfinity or in the Cup. And you can probably now that we have an Xfinity series road course race in the playoffs, definitely can see him. I guess we have to look at the Xfinity schedule, but I'm assuming that's also in the thing. But there's that possibility for him. So, yeah. Oh, no, it's not in the playoffs, but it is right before the playoffs for Xfinity. So that's definitely a possibility that he could win at Watkins Glen.
That is in the playoffs, actually. That's first round.
No, for Xfinity. Cup, it's in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's no problem. But the Watkins Glen is the second to last race in the playoffs for the Xfinity series. And he could win there, possibly, could win in, any of these races. The Charlotte Roval could win there. So, there's a strong possibility that if he picks this up really quickly, he could at least go to the round of 8, depending on I'm obviously spotting him road course races there, but, there is the path to at least get to the round of 8 and have a good showing here in probably what will be his only year in the Xfinity series, because I think they intend on putting him in the Cup Series full time in 2025. So I think that's going to be significant there. It's going to be fun and interesting to see him race, in Xfinity, and kind of give this series a little bit of international flair. I think this offseason we've seen the Xfinity series kind of see some new names pop in along with him, and think it's definitely, and some guys come back like Allmendinger. So it's definitely going to make for, I think, a pretty good, pretty competitive series here this year. At least in the top half of the field. So I think that's the most significant one there. I can also the sponsorship stuff. You can probably talk about like was it the Hunt Brothers Pizza going to Logano, like that. So they've SHR is losing another sponsor. It's going to Joey Logano. So which also kind of shows the viability for Pennzoil. They've been the sponsor along with Menards over in Penske with the 22 and the 12 and the 2. So now they're adding another driver into the fold for Hunt Brothers. So now they lose that, and of course Noah Gragson sponsorless currently with Stuart Haas, but I'm sure that they'll figure something out here in this one. And then of course we talked about Advent Health going over to the 43 with Legacy Motor Club, and of course looks like with Busch taking over the one full time, it looks like kind of didn't leave any room for Advent Health, so now they go over to sponsor the 43 car, which I think that's going to be definitely a good change from the colors that they've had the past season. Very monochromatic look that they've kind of had, in Advent Health, a very bright colored, sponsored with white, blue, green coloring. So definitely going to be a different look over in the 43 car for sure. There. So I think some pretty significant news piece here, especially in the Xfinity series for sure.
Yeah, the SVG thing definitely is the main one. And the point you brought up with Shane Van Gisbergen and AJ Allmendinger being the 1-2 combo at Colleague. We talked about it during the Xfinity season review, how they had fallen off in 2023 and they weren't as competitive and they really weren't running up front. Now you have two guys, that one that immediately is a championship contender and one who on any road course is basically a likely favorite, even with the lack of experience behind the wheel of a Xfinity car. I don't know if SVG has driven a TA2 car at all. They do race them in Australia. That would be comparable to driving an Xfinity car, but he's driven so many different types of race cars. I think he will acclimatize to it very well. Driving on super speedways and ovals is a whole other story. And he's going in the deep end racing at ovals like Talladega. So I think his goal is to probably run tailback and not get wrecked. But it is super speedway racing these days in the Cup Series, so you could get wrecked if you're running up front or running in the back. I also, the Lane Riggs thing I think is big. For Ford, because they need young drivers. The fact that he has shown a lot of talent and is a winner and has been won a national championship by winning the weekly racing series, like what used to be the Winston Racing Series championship. Now it's the Advanced Auto Parts championship. It's where Josh Berry came from. He won that title. So it gives hope if they don't fuck it up. Front Row Motorsports, of course, they're trying to keep their pipeline going. They do have their driver combination right now with McDowell and David Todd Gilliland. I think Zane Smith would have been the call, but they were going to run a third car, but they don't have the money for a charter. And Todd Gilliland had turned it around and picked up his progress. Michael McDowell winning at Indianapolis. I don't think they're going to get rid of him anytime soon. So that was part of the problem, but I also think when you're a Ford, when he's the number one prospect for Ford should be doing something to keep him there. He should have been in a Stewart-Haas car, in my opinion, whether it's the 10, more than likely to 10, instead of Gagson. If you're going to talk about no money, he has some money to bring to the table. He has some family sponsorship and whatever. But I think in the end he wanted to go to Trackhouse, and he said that, so it worked out that way, and he's probably going to replace Daniel Suarez in 2025. But for Lane Riggs, this is something where I can see a progression where he works for Front Row, drives for Front Row for a year in the Truck Series, and then advances to Xfinity with, say, SHR. But I know that there's like an issue between the Front Row Motorsports and other Ford teams. There might be other options, like, who knows, maybe Roush RFK gets back into the Xfinity side, and then they run Lane Riggs. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the long term, because they need to keep him. If they don't keep him and they lose him to Toyota or lose him to Chevy, which of course is a more likely scenario, it'd just be wasting all that potential and effort and energy to build his talent and build his experience, and then you're just going to let him go. I mean, it's happened on the Toyota side with going to Chevy or Ford. more than the other manufacturers, but Ford has, of course, been guilty of absolutely screwing it up in multiple occasions. So I'm curious to see how that'll be. Okay, so let's move. The next topic is recapping the best moments from this year. And so I'm going back all the way to January. We were talking about, football, of course, to start the year, major serious situation, the Damar Hamlin thing. That was crazy to talk about and think about, and the fact he's still here is such a big deal. Ken Block passed away at that point, so it was a sad time. Go through the first bit with Andretti Global in Formula One. Josh's Jaguars made the playoffs, and he cut a promo. That's a highlight for sure. Of course, the Niners made the playoffs and went all the way to the NFC Championship game. Josh going in, seeing the Jaguars make a 27-point comeback and being able to talk about it. Yeah. San Francisco trails at half, but 25 unanswered points, continuing their once improbable run, and a home game versus Monday Night Football winner. Harvick announces his retirement, and Jimmy Johnson announces Legacy Motor Club. Let's see, we got some of that other stuff. Kermit the Frog wins, gets to the Super Bowl, and I was pissed off about what happened in the NFC Championship game. We talked about. I'm forgetting who was it Truex that won the Clash this year? Or was it somebody else?
Yeah, it was Truex.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was too, and I couldn't. Richard
the Daytona
won the Daytona 530 because it took an extra 30 miles for them to finish, and so broke a long losing streak there. Kyle Busch, in only his second start for RCR, won at California. We did also started talking about IndyCar, previewing IndyCar and Formula One. I'm trying to go through here. I'm trying to remember to.
The IndyCar, the Grand Prix, at St. Petersburg was a pretty wild one. That was with Marcus Ericsson taking the win over Pato O'Ward. There was Roman Grosjean and McLaughlin wrecked each other when they had the race basically between the two of them. That was a insane finish there. White bread, Byron started his what became a career year with a win at at Las Vegas, and went back to back at Phoenix on the West Coast swing. Pizza Face gets his first win at Atlanta. Demo Derby Road Course Edition. So that one was with Coda, where Tyler Reddick ended up winning his first race for 2311. AJ Allmendinger cleaned out Sheldon Creed. So yeah, that was a precursor of things to come later in the year, honestly. Can you go through all that? The Masters edition of the GSP, talking about Christopher Bell winning the Bristol Dirt Race. We got
Long Beach, Martinsville. We got that draft. So we talked about the NFL draft. Hot takes and lifetime experiences. So that, what was a lifetime experience? More trying to see draft talk and review of the drafts for our teams.
Talk about that later on the football, why that one ended up being bad. So,
we're gonna. The Niners spent a third-round pick on Jake Moody. That looks much better every day because of how he's been able to perform. What was that? There was Kansas where Ross Chastain and Noah Gagson got into a air quote fight.
And turned Larson on the backstretch.
Yeah, and then he made his usual horse face there. That's whatever. Greatest day in motorsports as usual. We talked about. We talked about that with Joseph Newgarden winning the Indy 500 on a last lap pass. We talked about Monaco where Fernando Alonso was still competitive and had a puncher's chance to actually win that race. Brian Blaney went and broke 600. A 59 race winless streak with a dominant performance. Little did we know that was a precursor of greater things to come.
Yep.
The All-Star race at North Wilkesboro was the week before. Kyle Larson winning that one. The short track package showing how bad it was, and it's something that also stuck around during the year. Issues that they had with that. This one definitely is the highlight of the year for me. Was having young Tom Kendall on the show. I think he sat with us for an hour and a half, and to interview one of my motorsports heroes, a guy who has so much experience and such a wide-ranging career. Being able to interview him was just outstanding, and he gave us a lot of time after basically me badgering him in a subtle way for a long time. For him to come on and give us the time was pretty cool to see that or have that.
Oh yeah, with Tommy Kendall complimented me on my iRacing title with the Indy 500 winner. So
him asking me about where I got the young Tom Kendall thing from, and me being able to explain that it's from Bob Jenkins talking about him at the 1991 Save Mart Supermarkets 300, and he just sat there and he thought about it. I'm like, all right, I get you now. That was pretty funny. He gave us a lot of interesting news items. He was supposed to drive the Granger Ford for Roush Racing in the Truck Series. That eventually went
Greg Biffle.
The bug-eyed dummy Greg Biffle worked out for him in his career. Talked about Jack Roush not being willing to give him his championship Mustang. He worked for Chevrolet, and after he got hurt, they basically dumped him out to the Wolves, and Ford signed him. He drove for Dodge and the Viper program, and also drove the Dodge Challenger and Trans Am when he came back from one of his retirements there. So a lot went on there. Alex Palou, we got that talking about him at Road America getting the win, and he just continued to dominate. After Indianapolis, it basically became a Alex Palou benefit on the IndyCar side. Ross Chastain, after basically getting threatened for his life by Fat Felon, reappeared at Nashville for the first race that NBC had in 2023 and won that one. Of course, the SVG victory at the Chicago Street Course on July 4th weekend.
That's probably moment of the year there too.
That was one of the biggest moments in terms of motorsports, and for people butchering his name, the fact that he absolutely opened a can on the entire field. It isn't surprising to me in the sense that I've seen SVG at work and winning multiple championships in the Supercars Championship. He's raced in GT cars. He's raced all different types of vehicles. I've been a fan of other drivers that have been going against him, and he's been a tough out. I was a Scotty McLaughlin fan in the Supercars, so he was his rival. Both of them are Kiwis, so that was the thing. Now he won all those championships, won two Bathurst 1000s. We'll get into that later, but to go and finally win a couple Bathurst 1000s to end his time in Supercars. But everybody's talking about it still, that SVG showed up never driving a cup car before outside of a simulator, maybe driving it around at a test track for like a few minutes and going and winning on debut. And let me see here. That was a big piece of news when Nick DeVries got canned by AlphaTauri for Daniel Ricciardo, and Nick DeVries basically went and got a promotion. I think he got canned by AlphaTauri and then gets a better job because he's going to be driving for Toyota in the World Endurance Championship and also gets a Formula E ride. So he loses one ride and gained two. I think that's a win for him, even though it's humiliating that he got fired by AlphaTauri. I would also say to him, you're not the first one and you won't be the last, the way that they've run that program, that one-eyed Marco has run that deal for all these years. MTJ winning at New Hampshire for the first time after many years of trying. Christian Lundgaard, winning his first career race at Toronto. Palou with a broken wing coming from 15th to finish second after, couple weeks before winning at Mid-Ohio. Continuing his dominance there. Joseph Newgarden winning the both ends of the doubleheader at Iowa. Denny Hamlin winning his 50th Cup race at Pocono, 6th overall at Pocono, 50th overall Cup Series win. Running into Kyle Larson, putting him in the fence and getting booed. And him going and having I forget what he said. Who are you booing? I beat your driver, all of them, or something like that, right? I think that's what he said. Yeah. Lewis Hamilton had actually qualified on pole for the Hungarian Grand Prix and proceeded to absolutely take a shit. Kyle Busch won KBM's 100th race at Pocono in the Truck Series there. Trying to go through here. Yeah. Christopher Buescher. That one, him coming along there in the summer was
in Daytona.
Michigan and Daytona. Was it? Yeah. It was, because he won at Richmond.
Oh, yeah, that's
in Michigan. And then he did win at Daytona to close out the regular season. That R&J maggot moron Paul Tracy got suspended from SRX because he's such an asshole and he literally ran over everybody.
Yeah.
And he destroyed so much equipment they literally had to suspend Paul Tracy. I mean, that's next level suck right there. Kyle Kirkwood was another one in the IndyCar side. He ended up winning at Long Beach and Nashville to stake a claim to being a future championship contender. That was the same week, or the one at Nashville, Buescher winning at Michigan over MTJ. And then that was the same time as Noah Gragson got indefinitely suspended for being a maggot moron sympathizer and saying liking posts about George Floyd's death. Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus get into the NASCAR Hall of Fame together, along with Donnie Allison and Janet Guthrie. And Scott Dixon does a spin and win at IMS Road Course, and goes and makes it 19 consecutive years that he wins a race. That was the same weekend as SVG made his Truck Series debut.
At IRP.
At IRP, Michael McDowell won the Cup race and locked himself into the playoffs. Tony Stewart won at Eldora while Chase Briscoe's night was basically over. I don't know, I think 5 laps into the first heat. Kenny Schrader won a Pinty's Series race at the Canadian Tire, whatever, CASCAR race on dirt at age 68, which is insane, ridiculous. Kyle Larson won the Knoxville Nationals, second time in the last 3 years. David Gravel finished second. Donnie Schatz third. Rico Abreu was on the front row with him. We interviewed Austin Terrio,
Congress candidate in Maine.
Yes, and he talked about that. We brought up his career driving when he was in the driver development front, when he was with Dale Jr. and Brad Keselowski. We talked about his time with Kenny Schrader's team in ARCA when he won the championship, and he ran one Cup race or a few Cup races for Rick Ware, and also his time now in politics and what he was racing for, coming back to race in the Oxford 250. For racing for the first time since 2019 in that. So that was another interesting guest that we had on. And that was Alex Palou winning the IndyCar championship after winning at Portland. And Daytona, Cup. I didn't write that down. And Scott Dixon won the season finale at Laguna, while there was restart carnage, and probably was a precursor of what we've had the last few months with all the clusters that IndyCar has been getting themselves into. The way that they were having issues on restarts, and the pace car, I think, ran out of gas because they had so many laps under yellow. Tyler Reddick taking advantage of his boss's F up to go and win and advance into the round of 12. You got that. Oh, yeah, I beat your favorite driver was at Bristol.
Yeah, Bristol.
When, so that one was, and everyone
Dale
was
Jr.
booing.
winning, or not winning, but Dale Jr. leading 46 laps under green at Bristol as well in the Xfinity race.
Yeah, and having a chance, and honestly having a chance to win, and I think virtually everybody wanted him to win that race. That was the same weekend that Zane Smith announced that he was going to go to Trackhouse. And then the loss of Sherry Pollux with her cancer, with her long battle with ovarian cancer. And then that was at that time also was when Miss Hummer decided to go scorched earth on MTJ and show yet again why nobody likes her, and she's another conspiracy theorist whore. That and oh yeah, the smooth operator won the Grand Prix of Singapore, which was one of the only highlights that came from the Formula One season, beating his buddy Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. One of the only races where Fish Lips actually had to work hard. Got held out in terms of one of the safety cars, or else he would have probably gotten up there and won. Carlos Sainz used Lando Norris and kept them in DRS range to hold off Lewis. This was an example of George Russell being an idiot, and Mercedes not handling the situation well, because Lewis was faster on the fresh tires and they didn't allow him to get by. And that was, so Darrell Wallace Jr., that was at Texas. He was trying to win. He qualified on pole, led the most laps at Texas, but William Byron came around late in the race to go and get that victory, locking in around 8. Fish Lips locked up the constructors at the Japanese Grand Prix, and we talked about the schedule there. YRB photo finish over Kevin Harvick at Talladega, and a DQ in the process.
Wide. Yep.
Yeah. So that was another one. And then AJ Allmendinger getting the victory at the Roval in the Cup Series. First win in 50 races. 14. And then Qatar saw Fish Lips win the driver's title in the sprint, while Oscar Piastri actually won the sprint and won the pole for it. Lewis and George having a wreck first lap incident, and they had mandatory tire stops because there was issues with the heat and the Pirelli tires. That was the same race where Logan Sargent puked in his helmet and had to park. That was not good for him. Victory, that was that. We talked about him. So golden ticket time. Larson and Blaney at Homestead while they were battling for the win. Their issues and Larson crashed into the sand barrels. Blaney wasn't able to make the restart late or hold up late in the race to hold off Christopher Bell. He was the first driver to lock into the Final Four. Sam Mayer in the Xfinity Series, continuing his breakout season, first oval win in his Xfinity career, and Hocevar dominated at Homestead in the Truck Series to get into Phoenix. The U.S. Grand Prix was the one example for Lewis Hamilton where he really had a chance. He was trying to get past Fish Lips, but in the end, Fish Lips got his 50th career victory there. And so we got NFL, got that. Trick or Treat. Martinsville was where YRB got in and by winning that race, and gave himself a chance to go and win the championship, which then we get into that where in a year where the Fords struggled across the board, really, Ford vehicles won all 3 championships. Ryan Blaney wins his first career Cup Series championship, finishing second behind Ross Chastain, and Cole Custer winning the Xfinity title, and Ben Rhodes winning the Truck Series title by default. After what was probably one of the stupidest races in the history of motorsports. I was in Florida during that, actually, so it was for my niece's christening and stuff, so I was watching that race in a in an Airbnb and couldn't believe what the hell happened.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas Grand Prix took place here in the last few weeks, and that was a big deal for motorsports and for Formula One. And then we also reviewed some of these things, so we've been doing reviews there. The recent news, of course, last week was Tony Stewart continuing his Hall of Fame racing career. Now he's going to be a Top Fuel driver full-time next year, taking over his wife Leah Pruitt's ride, since they're going to start a family, meaning Tony Stewart at 50-something years old, 52 years old, is going to be a dad. So that is something. Yeah, a lot went on. We got to interview Tommy Kendall, got to interview Austin Terrio. We did a lot here this season, but is there anything that I didn't bring up during this that stood out to you, Josh?
I mean, no, I think covered it all basically, and it's had a lot of big moments, that we talked about this year on the show. Of course, we had lots of different guests. Probably had one of our best episodes with TK on, and had a lot of stuff, and we had Joe on a couple of times, and glad to have him back up, and everything. So it was a lot of stuff happened. It was a lot of challenges that we had to go through and everything, and we were able to get to here now. So I mean, it was a lot of content that we went over throughout the year, and I definitely enjoy being able to talk about motorsports and stuff. Certainly feel like I don't know why, I guess every time the Jaguars lose, I feel like I like motorsports better than football. It's like every time they lose, and it's like, yeah, this is why I'm a racing fan first. So
yeah, I can feel that based on what San Francisco was bringing to the table for a long time. It's flipped around for now, but knock on wood. But you just have to ride it out there. Racing definitely is a respite, but it goes on for a long time through the whole entire year. This coming year is going to be interesting when they have to take 3 weeks off because of the Olympics. But in terms of that, I mean, doing this for 4 years, I mean, it's crazy that it started during COVID time. We did it basically I think it was because of Frank Linker, from the Indie Sports Car podcast. Him and his wife, Melissa, they did that podcast, one of the best podcasts that were out there for a long time. And now they're parents to a young boy, and they're going to have another child. Frank listened to the show that I was doing by myself and said, "You need a co-host." Josh and I were talking about iRacing because that was the time when they were having the invitational events for NASCAR, and that started basically what we have now. And so it's amazing to think 200 episodes and people we've been able to talk to, interview, and being able to meet up with, get Joe on has been always great when he comes on too. We always have spirited conversations, and being able to interview Ralph Shaheen, Tommy Kendall are two interviews that I'll have for the rest of my life, and absolute honor that we've been able to pull off here, getting other drivers. And we've had people like Dawson Cram, who now is going to move up to the Xfinity Series full time in 2024. We've had him on the show. Of course, Austin Terrio, somebody who I was a fan of during his days as in the ARCA series, and also when he was a Brad Keselowski development driver. There's the irony, of course, with how the wreck that he had with that was triggered by Tyler Reddick, his teammate, changed his whole entire career outlook. But he has a very positive mindset of it, and now he's a driver development guy working with Ron Hornaday. So that's also a pretty cool thing to see. I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff here. We go over all these motorsports. It's kind of crazy. We talk about football, and that's where we're going next. So, NFL Week 15. Josh, I'll let you start. You get to celebrate beating me in fantasy. In the quarterfinals here, in Fall Brawl, and in terms of my other team on this email address, I was the number 1 seed there, so I'll be playing this coming weekend for that. Josh winning by 18 points. Great job by him, and also using, and there's an irony that he used 2 49ers to beat me. So that's the good and the bad of it. Brock Purdy going off 4 touchdowns. Deebo Samuel had 3 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence, even in a game that you're going to talk about that was definitely not his best, still put up a decent score. And you got great productivity from Sam Laporta. Devin Singletary, I think, was the big one. 29 points from him, 29, nearly 30 for Laporta, and 29 points from L'Jarius Sneed. That really made the difference for me. Bijan Robinson shitting the bed because Arthur Smith is a absolute douche. Losing to the Carolina Panthers, that essentially was the difference. Brandon Ayuk didn't have a great game either. So that really, and Alex Singleton, after having great last few weeks, didn't really have a great game in their loss to Detroit. But Josh, you can go and talk about it, and not only what you're doing here, and you had a lot of points even on the bench, so it tells you that it could have been an even bigger win, depending on how that went. But credit to you on your victory, and as it stands right now, what is it? Steve's going to advance, so that means Steve is going to play Vikram, and then you're going to be playing Luke, who's the number 1 seed after the regular season. So you can go and give us your initial thoughts on that.
I mean, I think this week in fantasy, Brock Purdy had another big game. He's projected 28 points, and Arizona had the ninth best points, or the 9th worst points to QBs. So that was a good matchup. And Deebo, quarterback's going to have a good matchup. That means the wide receiver is going to have a good matchup there. Laporta, he's come on the last couple of weeks. He had a bad game last week, but this game here, he had a really good game on Saturday night. 3 receiving touchdowns, 5 receptions for 56 yards, 5 receiving first downs. So yeah, that's a big help there. Only projected to score 12 there too, so it's playing way over his projected numbers. Michael Pittman Jr. was on track to have a big game, but then got taken out in the second quarter, at the end of the second quarter, on a hospital ball from Gardner Minshew. DeAndre, or DeMontu, I don't know how to say his name, but KZ, the safety over on the Steelers, he's been suspended for the rest of the season for rough play, basically. And Not the first time I've seen him take or put on a hit on a QB or a wide receiver that took him out. Back in 2018, took out Marquise Lee in the preseason game against Jacksonville there, and basically ended his career there. So with a torn ACL in like 2 different places or something like that. So it's not the first time I've seen that. L'Jarius Sneed also played way over his projected score there. Just a bunch of solo tackles. New England, of course, on its probably the final chapter of writing the final page of Bill Belichick's storied career as a coach, possibly in the league. Not sure if he'll come back after this. There, Luke Wilson had an okay game against Minnesota, against Nick Mullins there, although if I would have started the other Cincinnati linebacker in that game, I think I would have started or had way more points there. Micah Parsons did not have a good game against Buffalo. He had only 2 tackles assisted. They just got completely demolished against the Bills there. So important as they go up against Miami this coming up for them. It's gonna be interesting there to of course one of the better offenses in the league. And bench performed well. Kenneth Walker here getting rushing touchdowns. So even though I started Kenneth Walker here, over Singletary or something, I don't know. I think I swapped out Singletary for Kenneth Walker there. So he's still on track to have good points. I could have swapped him out for ETN there. So, and Joe Flacco had picked up on the bench last week, scored 30 points, and he's got pretty good matchup coming up against the Texans. So that might help. Amari Cooper, I've had him on the bench for a little bit. Garrett Wilson, I've had him, but they've been shut out and probably not going to have a good game against whoever they play next, because their season is basically over. And I doubt that Aaron Rodgers comes back now that the Jets have been eliminated from the playoffs. Tyler Boyd had bench points as well, of course. And Debo, good game there, as I mentioned. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting week here coming up. I feel like I match up well against Luke initially. So we'll see how that plays out here next week in terms of his players versus my players. So really shocked I even made it to this point, honestly. I felt like at the beginning of the year when he did this draft that it was a solid team is better than the worst ranked team on Yahoo's points. And again, I think it's because Yahoo doesn't project for the 2 QB system and the individual defense. But, we've kind of grinded it out over the year. And, now we're here to the quarterfinals, or to the semifinals. So, it's going to be interesting here, depending on some of my players here, of course, who I haven't talked about. I have not talked about Trevor Lawrence, and I thought he played okay, to be honest. I don't think it was horrible, but, the fourth quarter allegedly may have had a concussion that he either sustained on one of the scrambling drives or runs that he did, and he got clocked in the helmet and the side of the helmet. And then there was another play at the end of the third quarter where he tried to throw it away and he landed on the back or the side of his helmet and may have gotten concussed there. And it makes sense because the first, up to that point had gone 21 out of 28 for 240 yards. And then I think the last part of that had gone like 4 out of 14 or something for only 24 yards. So clearly something was completely off there. And, well, a lot of people are pointing to that, but also, the Jaguars couldn't run the ball. So, that's why I feel like ETN, I've been able to hang on to him this whole year, but, ETN hasn't been playing well because the offensive line can't block for the Jaguars, and that's going to be the problem for them. The defensive line for Baltimore, one of the best. So we'll see how it goes here against Tampa Bay. But yeah, they made a lot of mistakes. Again, they've been making a lot of mistakes this entire year. That's their identity. Everybody's saying though they don't have an identity. Well, their identity is the fact that they have no identity because they can't seem to help themselves in critical situations, and the stuff that they got away within October, they can't get away with now because it matters more. And now the way the schedule makers made the schedule here this year with the IBM AI or whatever it is, has really just made the league feel weird. And, they went through an entire gauntlet where they faced the AFC North 3 weeks in a row and got completely crushed. So, they, just went against like 3 completely tough physical teams, which is, what the definition of the AFC North is. And, got, and all of them all at one point former divisional rivals in the AFC Central, and they just got completely crushed by all 3 of them. It's not looking great. And I mean, they're 8-6, so you can say, well, they're still tied. They still have control, but I mean, well, you're hanging on by a thread. That thread is getting weaker and weaker each week. And if they lose next week, then they're no longer in control unless both Indianapolis and Houston lose. So it's gonna be tough. It's a short trip. It's still in Florida, so they're not leaving the state. But the Bucs are kind of feast and famine, and you have no idea what type of team we're gonna see going up against Baker Mayfield, and still have remnants of that Tom Brady era team where they went and did a lot of stuff, and Tom Brady that team was stacked, and now not quite as much. So we'll see how that goes. If they can figure out how to run the ball here in the next couple of weeks and squeak their way into the playoffs, then hopefully they can do that. And Trevor is in the concussion protocol, so even then it's questionable, and we have no idea how CJ Beathard would play. And this is the one situation where maybe it'd favor having Gardner Minshew still on this team, but of course, I don't think he would have lasted here. After, just too competitive guy to stay on the bench there. So, that's why he's not on this team anymore. He's possibly could be guiding the Colts to a playoff berth there. So, still in the driver's seat, but if your finger isn't on the panic button ready to press it, mine certainly is. And some say you may have pressed it last night, but might just be right there ready to push the trigger and panic. But if they lose, then they lose out and they don't make the playoffs. I don't know. Maybe that might be a better result for the future, and they can get rid of certain individuals and get rid of personnel that that didn't help them this year, and kind of retool things. Because then I feel like if you make the playoffs, and even if you lose the one game in the playoff, you can still kind of rest on your laurels of making the playoffs, and it buys you time, But then on the other end, if you completely miss the objective, then it makes the decision to get rid of people on a little bit easier. So we'll see, but it's a bit tough here. They just went through a totally tough portion of their schedule, and all 3 of those games very winnable. But Trevor Lawrence played well or played okay, but then had certain moments where first half just gave away a fumble on a scramble. Then this coming to halftime, they had a chance to get a touchdown or a field goal and threw it short of the sticks there, and should have thrown it out of bounds, out of the end zone, with not getting the right look there. But I don't know, it's tough. So we'll see how they do next week. We'll see if he can clear concussion protocol, and if not, then I guess we'll see CJ Beathard out there, and hopefully everybody can play well around him as they kind of stumble here towards the finish line.
And that's, we got what is it, 3 weeks to go in the regular season, and it's a 3-way tie in the AFC South for the division. Jacksonville, if they can win out, will win the division. Otherwise, they do have tiebreakers on both the Colts and the Texans, but if they don't have Trevor Lawrence, I think it's going to be a problem. I mean, last night, because we're doing this Monday, of course, but going on Sunday Night Football and watching the Baltimore Ravens basically dominate on both sides of the ball, it's a tough thing to fade. I mean, it's not as bad as what it was with the Niners, but I don't think it's completely gone. I think the Jaguars are still going to make the playoffs. But what is their viability long term in the playoff? That's something to be in question. I think you have a great point in terms of them. If they somehow or another fall out, it wouldn't be good for Doug Peterson. It wouldn't be good for Trent Baalke, but it might be better in terms of the long term because they'll be able to improve the offensive line. They'll maybe get Trevor some additional weapons. Maybe Trevor will be more motivated to get through, because last year I think he was working with house money considering how bad Urban Meyer was. This year there was a lot of expectations, and we can argue about it. I mean, you're a diehard, so you've been through the whole entire roller coaster this whole season. You still got 3 weeks to go. So on the Niners side, 4 touchdown passes for Brock Purdy. They put up 45 burger on the Arizona Cardinals. They gave up 29 points, in part because they didn't have a starting defensive tackle. Both of their starters are out with injuries, in Hargrave and Eric Armstead. Kinlaw was playing. He's more of a rush defensive tackle than he is a run stuffer. James Conner was able to run all over, so was Kyler Murray when he wasn't dealing with his certain ailments. I mean, Debo doing Debo things, Christian McCaffrey. It's kind of the similar talking points as it has been for most of the year on offense. And I mean, I was concerned. I was concerned about the Arizona game in the sense that I know that Arizona usually plays the Niners tough. It's been that way for years, and it's especially been that way since Shanahan came along. The injuries made it probably closer than it should have been, but they get the win. Oh boy, that is not good. Lane Johnson just got rolled up on. The Eagles are up 17-10 with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. Lane Johnson got rolled up on. We'll see what's going on. I think they're taking a zoom out. They might go to commercial here. But, I mean, the Niners, now they're going to be preparing to go against the Baltimore Ravens. So the number 1 seeds in both conferences will be playing on Monday Night Football on Christmas night in Santa Clara. So Lamar Jackson will be going and playing against the Niners defense. Hopefully one or both of the defensive tackles will be back because we already saw what happened, what has happened over this entire season, to be fair. He was my quarterback for fantasy, and it wasn't because of him that I lost. It's just, I think the way the luck of the draw, hitting the wrong people at the wrong times, that's why I'm not in the mix now. But it wasn't because of Lamar Jackson. He played great, arguably an MVP candidate, but because the numbers don't match. I mean, they brought it up during the game yesterday. What he means to the Baltimore Ravens, just what he is and how he plays and all that. He is an MVP, or the MVP, arguably, because if they don't have Lamar Jackson, they're a sieve. Even with a lot of the talent that they have there, the last 2 years he gets hurt and they drop anchor. Now they've kept him upright and alive, and they're trying to get the number 1 seed. Last time he got through the majority of the season, he won the MVP. So that's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. Niners definitely want to put up a good fight there. If they can win, they'll lock up the number 1 seed more than likely. If they don't, it opens the door for the likes of Philadelphia, for the Cowgirls, who got anally annihilated by the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen it wasn't because they did some amazing deal there. It was really James Cook dominated on the ground and destroyed the Cowboys, and they were able to hold time of possession. Prescott did not play well. They're god-awful on the road, and they're really good at home. If they don't get the division, the NFC East, then they're going to end up having to go on the road the whole way through the playoffs, which is not a good situation for them. Philly right now Hurts is playing. They're in a position where if they can win, they'll keep up with the Niners. I'm trying to get through the week NFL. Yeah, so the Bengals won on Saturday. Saturday in overtime over Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, Thursday night was that blowout. Las Vegas winning 63-21. The end of I forget what the coach's name is. Was the coach of the Chargers. There was talk that he was going to get fired anyway, and he has not done a lot to justify him keeping a job. And then they give up 63 points. Gives up 63 points on Thursday Night Football. Yeah, wow, that's something. Mina on her wedding day goes and wears a helmet. Wow, that's something. So I'm forgetting Brandon Staley. There you go. Brandon Staley got fired, and I think they fired the GM too, Tom Telesco, as well. Indianapolis they beat Pittsburgh by 2 scores. Detroit blew out Denver to get themselves back in the mix in terms of the number 1 seed. That Carolina game, which irritates me because the Carolina Panthers are god-awful. Atlanta, because of how stupid Arthur Smith is, gave away the game. That and the fact that Desmond Ridder is not even worthy of being a starting quarterback. I don't even think he's a backup he's basically a backup quarterback. But then when you consider he's a zealot from the Tennessee coaching tree, that's usually what they do. They have mediocre quarterback play. They have like 18 running backs, and then they usually finish 500. Cleveland came back and somehow or another was able to beat Chicago. Chicago had a chance to win the game in regulation and gave it away. Justin Fields continues to play in a manner where they're probably going to use one of their picks on a quarterback. Tampa Bay beating Green Bay. Jordan Love having the good and bad, the Jekyll and Hyde of this season. Losing by 2 touchdowns at home to Tampa Bay is pretty bad. Miami blowing out the Jets. Josh bringing it up with Aaron. He's not going to play. There's no reason for him to play unless he just wants to do it because of his ego. New Orleans went and beat Tommy Cutlets up the whole entire day. Zach Wilson got got destroyed and got knocked out of the game. Trevor Siemian turned the ball over 3 times. The Houston Texans won in overtime over the Tennessee Titans, wearing the Oilers throwbacks. Houston with Kaimi Fairbairn returning to kick for the Texans, gets the win. Kansas City, that game got flexed off of Monday Night Football, and they win by 10 points over the Patriots. Josh brought up, of course, the end of the line for Bill Belichick. I doubt that this is going to... I personally don't think it's the end. I think he's going to get a call to coach somewhere else. I think Washington is probably that scenario. I mean, the Chargers are out there. That's another job. We got other... I think that's just 2 that we know for sure are going to be open. I mean, you could say like Chicago, Carolina, Atlanta, maybe. The Jets. Well, he's not going to the Jets. That's him. We talked about the Niners. LA beats the Washington General Commander Redskins. And Buffalo we talked about. And then the Baltimore-Jacksonville game. So, and then we have Monday Night Football going on here. So, we'll go to the... I'm trying to get the whatever stats, schedule, scores. Where's the playoff thing? I was trying to find the playoff thing. Team schedules, standings. Oh, there you go. So the playoff picture as it stands right now, before we move forward, here, trying to get there. So we'll start with the AFC side. Baltimore has clinched the playoff spot with their victory on Sunday Night Football, and they are a game ahead of the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins hold a number 2 seed. The Chiefs hold a number 3 seed at 9-5. Dolphins 10-4. Jacksonville, as Josh brought up earlier, still in the lead of the AFC South. 3-way tie for the AFC South lead. The wild cards are the Cleveland Browns at 9-5, the Cincinnati Bengals at 8-6, and the Indianapolis Colts at 8-6. The Texans are on the outside right now, along with the Bills. Those 2 teams 8-6. The Steelers, with their loss, fall to 7-7. They are now down from 6-10, and the Broncos from 9-11. The Raiders, getting their victory, swapped places with the Chargers. The Patriots, Titans, and the Jets are all eliminated. You can basically say that the Chargers are eliminated too. On the NFC side, the Niners, Eagles, and Cowboys are all locked in. So there's 4 more spots for the playoffs to be determined. That's the NFC North, the NFC South, and 2 wild cards. Right now, the Niners are 11-3. The Eagles are 10-3 pending the result on Monday Night Football. Cowboys are 10-4. Lions are 10-4, so they have a chance to... They're in the mix here for the number 1 seed. The Buccaneers lead the NFC South for now. The Saints have the same record. The Falcons are a game behind in the division. And so the Buccaneers are there. So then the wild cards right now are the Minnesota Vikings and LA Rams. All those teams, those three teams, 7-7. The Saints, 7-7. Seahawks are 6-7. Falcons fall to 6-8. With the Packers, the Giants fall to 5-9 with the Bears. The Panthers, Cardinals, and Commanders are all eliminated. The Bears and the Giants probably will be out. Can add the Raiders there too. So yeah, we're starting to cut down who's gonna be left in the mix here. If you get in right now, I mean, honestly, in the NFC, you have four teams that are contender teams: the Niners and the Eagles, the Lions and the Cowboys. But then the Lions and the Cowboys both have shown that they've been inconsistent. They're at home, or if they have certain circumstances, they're really good, or otherwise they look like crap. The AFC is an absolute murderer's row, and we're not even taking into account the fact that the Buffalo Bills are outside of the playoff at the moment. So they can get in. I've been saying this for weeks. I've said it to Professor J for weeks that I've been of the belief that the Bills are going to get back into the playoffs. They've used all this stuff like McDermott, that stupidity that he said, that all got put out to the media. They used it as almost like a battle cry, or going and circling the wagons. And then Josh Allen has decided to switch on to another level, talking about MVPs. He's a guy, if you want to talk about that, in terms of what is the meaning of one player, I talk about that in the case of Lamar. That also goes for Josh Allen. If they don't have Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills are a 5-win team, if that. So there's, Brock Purdy is the best. He's advocating for CMC. I mean, he can advocate for CMC, can advocate for Debo, Ayuk at times, but not all the time. Obviously, he's not consistent, and they don't give it to him every single week. Or GK. Trent Williams, is the best offensive lineman in the whole entire league. Without him, that was part of why they lost 3 games in a row. So the Niners are just going to kind of take each other out in that sense. But the Monday Night Football game is huge against Baltimore. Going to be a tough matchup to win. And you're playing Miami. So that one, playing against one of the highest octane offenses in the NFL, Mike McDaniel, I think that's a big test. And I'm curious to see how the rest of the division handles that situation there. Get into the schedules. So the week 16 slate will start with the Saints and the Rams, battle of two teams that are in the playoff hunt. Their Rams are in the playoffs. Saints are right outside the playoffs, and tied for the division lead on Thursday. Then Saturday, Bengals will be at Pittsburgh, trying to continue their march for the playoff. Steelers, essentially, if they lose there, they're done. It looks like they're going to start Mason Rudolph, so they're done. The Bills, the Bengals-Steelers game will be on NBC. The Peacock exclusive game looked a lot better when Justin Herbert was alive, but with his going down for the season, the Chargers are terrible. Now they fired their coach and their GM. They're going to be hosting the Bills. Josh Allen getting a a spotlight to go and put his name into the mix for the MVP. And then you have Christmas Eve. The Christmas Eve slate is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 games. Colts and Falcons. Colts trying to continue to hold their, keep themselves in the playoff. Falcons also tied for the game behind in the division for the NFC South. Packers trying to stay alive. They get to go to Carolina. Cleveland and Houston. That's a big matchup there. Two teams that are in the playoff mix. One that is in the playoffs at the moment, and Texans trying to get there with DeMeco Ryans. Will CJ Stroud suit up? That could be a big part of whether they can win or not. The Lions divisional matchup playing against the Vikings. If they can win that game, I think they probably go and lock up the division there. The Washington General Redskin Commanders playing against the New York Bretts. That game will be unwatchable. Seattle and Tennessee. Will Levis at home. They've been more dynamic. They've had chances. They just haven't been able to close. Seattle's been scuffling since Geno Smith went down with his injury. I mixed it up. I said the Dolphins. It was the Buccaneers. So Jacksonville going to Tampa Bay, 4:00 game. Jacksonville can utilize this opportunity here. They can knock off the division leading Buccaneers and give themselves a chance, solidify playoff opportunity there. The Cardinals-Bears game is also terrible, but if you like running quarterbacks and Fields and Kyler Murray, you have that. The game in the late window will be the Cowboys at Miami. We have Dallas, who can't win on the road against one of the best offenses in the NFL. So that'll be an interesting matchup for sure. And then the Sunday night football game will be on NFL Network. Patriots at Denver. So that's unwatchable. Generally, but the Broncos, that's right. They're going to have a hard time they're not going to make the playoffs there. On Christmas Day, Raiders Chiefs at 1:00. That'll be a Nickelodeon game, no less. So I'll watch that on Nickelodeon probably. And the Raiders, they're more than likely, their scant playoff hopes will be extinguished there. Kermit the Frog playing on Christmas. The 4:30 game will be the Giants at Philadelphia. Philadelphia trying to keep themselves in the mix for the number 1 seed. That'll be 4:30 game on Fox. And then ABC and ESPN will have Monday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens against the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, nice slate. When we come back here in a couple weeks' time, definitely go over what has transpired over the last few weeks, where the playoffs stand, and all that. So let's move forward. Let's go to the sim segment, Josh, for the last time in 2023. Let us know what's going on iRacing and gaming side.
Yeah, this past week I ran the Indy Pro 2000s at Road America. Ran a race there. Wasn't a whole lot of guys in the field. I think only maybe 8 or 9 people total. But it was good learning experience racing open wheel at a track that I really like. In Road America, finished 4th. Wasn't able to keep pace with the leaders over the course of the race, but I was definitely learning how to try to defend my position and try to keep keep pace and not lose time, or not lose time, but not give up time to people behind me. So, I probably needed better setup, but I was willing to try to use my driving tactics to get through and get through the race. So that was a pretty interesting experience there with the kind of like a step below the Indy cars here on iRacing. So got that. Gonna say I'm kind of thinking about doing the iRacing Rolex 24 next year. So I'm considering it, but I gotta figure out what the logistics of that would be and everything, and also I'm gonna have to be up for how would shifts work like that, and being up for that long, or when would you start racing, all that stuff. So got that part down. So I think this week we'll see for that. That's kind of talking the future, but I think this week for what we'll be able to do in the off season here on iRacing, looking at upcoming races here. The Cup Series at Indianapolis and the next gens, that might be interesting. Might want to try that. Draft Masters as usual. Xfinity at Gateway here. Let's see where else. Trucks at Talladega. Dallara IR18 is at the Nürburgring for some reason. Whatever, I don't know why, but that's an interesting combination there. The Truck Series at Talladega still. Look at that. Excuse me. There, that's the Legend Series at Talladega. It's the 87s at Talladega. That's pretty interesting there too. Looking at the road course schedule here. GT3s at Roadkusen Motor Center. Formula Fords at Hockenheim Ring. Mustang Skip Arbors at Summit Point. I got touring cars at Twin Ring Motegi. Stock Car Brazil at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Global MX5s at Tsukuba Circuit once again. Dallara Formula IR at Watkins Glen Butte. The IndyCar at the road course open setup IndyCar at Michigan here this week. 100 lapper there. GR Cup at Sandown International Raceway. Let's see. Formula C's at Mount Panorama. The advanced MX5s at Long Beach here. So that's the open setup MX5 Cup there. So Spec Racer Series. So that's Sports Car Club of America car at Charlotte Motor Speedway road course, or Legends road course, I should say, there. So I think they did recently have the iRacing IMSA Cup, or IMSA official cup or whatever, and that was at Daytona this past week. So I saw that on the headlines there. So yeah, IMSA Esports Global Championship race, Team Redline, I think, and then VRS Racing or something like that. So some of the Team Redline's a pretty famous racing group, of course, and that's where Max Verstappen doubles on his time when he's not racing for real. I think he's part of their drivers group. VRS is one of the sim, I think they were one of the sim help sites or whatever, and they have a big setup shop, and I guess they've had their own team or whatever for very long time. So that should be interesting. So yeah, I think the iRacing 24 is January 19th or something like that. So let's see, when is January 19th? That's a Friday. January 20th. I have to look at that. I have to start looking at the coordination. And I mean, I'm obviously not going to do that by myself, so I have to figure out how I can get a team. But I was thinking about it earlier. I mean, it might be interesting to go and try and do it. So no guarantees yet, but definitely the thought is there to go out and try that. So we'll see. So yeah, I mean that'd be quite a stream if I'm able to do that. So definitely if we do have it's a month away, I guess, but if we do have that, the iRacing 24, obviously Twitch TV / uSailor2, go on there and look at the streams. Maybe we'll stream this week, we'll see. But go on there and look at all that stuff. Of course, Twitter, JP Huffine, of course, hot takes on the Jaguars, and any other racing or any other information that I'm interested in. Go on there and look at my page. And of course, the YouTube channel, Grip Strip Podcast, where we'll have all videos up and everything, and have those up for this one, hopefully the end of the week here, and for the end of the year. So of course, glad to talk about episode 200. 200, nice round number, as they say. 200 miles per hour. 200 points, all that stuff. 1/3 of a perfect game in bowling. To tie back to you there, of course. So, 200 is a good number.
2/3 towards a perfect game, actually. Also 200 victories for Mr. the King. That's another one. In NHRA with Pro Stock Motorcycles going 200 miles an hour is pretty insane. That's another one. I mean, 200 is a great number, but we're not done. We're just going to go and take the Christmas break, but we'll be back, obviously, in a couple weeks' time. And to continue this deal, to start a new year, start the 2024 season 5, for sure there. But first of all, you can find me at PG Matthew 28. Find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. You can find the Gripster Podcast basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. Uploaded a bunch of episodes here because I've been delayed with all that, and been my fault, but we got a bunch of content out in one shot. There's going to be oh man, that is a massive interception by Jalen Hurts. Okay, so 17-13 Philadelphia right now. An interception by the Seahawks. But you can find the Gripster Podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us at philipgmatthew.com. You can find us on Podbean, which is our host site. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you, Josh, your family, and also to everybody who listens and supports us here on the GSP. And we will be back in 2024 for season 5 of this deal, working towards 300. Since we've gotten to 200 this year, continue on this track, we'll be at 300 by the end of 2024, and that'll be a perfect game. Hopefully by then I also have a perfect game in bowling, but one step at a time.
300 is 2 episodes a week, probably. So,
well, we got through, what is it? We did 50. Oh yeah, that's right. So we'll get to episode 250. My bad. Still a good number. And we'll look to get towards that next year. And with that, for Josh, I'm Phil. We'll see you on the other side in 2024. Thanks for listening to Gripster Podcast.